Are we now live? Right. Good afternoon. So thank you very much for coming along to the HE evening. We are doing this as a recording and we are doing it live now. So you'll notice that there is a Q&A function. So throughout the event, if you have questions, if you want to know something, please do put your questions into the chat and we will do everything we can to answer them. So without further ado, just a quick reminder that you know how brilliant the college is. And so this evening is just really the icing on the cake for you thinking about going on to university. And I think the biggest thing that we see really is university is such a good choice for those of you who are thinking about it. There are lots of advantages of going. Certainly all the SMT went. We wouldn't be able to go to do these jobs without having gone to university. So it's a really, really great opportunity. For the rest of the year, because you're thinking about your options already for next year and university progression as well, we have got lots of changes around the campus, and so that also will help you to go on to where you want to go and to the amazing opportunities in the future. So now, in terms of our success, we know that the number of students going off to university has been increasing, the type of university people are going to, and the competitive nature of those universities. Students are doing absolutely brilliantly, and you can see there are lots of examples of students who are getting A stars, gone off to the most competitive universities, and you'll learn a bit more about that further on. But whatever type of university, whichever course you're thinking about, it's really important to us. We want to make sure that you do your very best. And then another statistic that we think we're really, really proud of is the thing that we really care about at East Norfolk is making sure that everyone is able to go on and be as resilient as they possibly can. And I think that's even more important in COVID. It means that our students have the skills, learn to be independent and go forward. And you can see here there's some really amazing statistics. So our students do better than those who go to independent schools, better than those who go on to from state sixth forms in high schools, and our students achieve a really, really high number of first class degrees. So absolutely fantastic, and we're super proud of that. Now, without further ado, I think I'm going to be handing back to Michael, who's then going to do some of the introductions to our speakers this evening. So Michael.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. Yeah, so we're very fortunate this afternoon to have Rebecca from UEA, who's going to go through the benefits of going to university and the subtleties involved in deciding and making those really important choices. And then Amelia from the University of Suffolk is going to talk us through student finance and to be able to answer any questions that students may or parents may have relating to, you know, the financial aspect of going to university and trying to relay some of those concerns that the media puts out there from time to time. So thank you, Catherine, for that, and I'll pass now over to Rebecca.
Perfect. So hopefully you can all now see and hear me. My name is Becky, and or Rebecca, you can call me that as well, from the University of East Anglia. So I am actually what is called an outreach officer. So that means that even though I am based at the UEA, I'm not a recruiter specifically for UEA or anything like that. I give impartial advice and guidance about universities up and down the country, and even college degrees as well, if you wanted to stay a bit more local and do something like that as well. I do, as I work at the university, if you do have any UEA specific questions, we know that it's a very popular choice for local students, then you can ask me that, because I do liaise with accommodation, etc., etc. But it can be about any university up and down the country. I myself went to the University of Sheffield, which is a city university, because of the things that I wanted to do there specifically as well. But what I'm going to be talking about today is a lot more general about why do people go and get a degree? Why do sixth forms and colleges up and down the country sing the praises of university and colleges? And why is it the option that a lot of people do choose to go and do, as opposed to apprenticeships or going straight into employment? First slide, please, Michael. So I'm going to be talking through 4 top reasons today. As I'm speaking through, feel free to pop any questions in the chat that have been niggling in your mind, and I can answer them as I go along or at the end, depending on how we get on for time. So the first thing I'm going to be talking through is about career, because no matter what pathway you go down, I mean, if you go down apprenticeships or employment, you're basically in a job straight away. But you are going to end up with a job at the end of it. So obviously career prospects are really important. Thinking about employability and employability rates now more than ever is probably a concern for a lot of people. So the employability benefits of universities are really, really important, and we'll talk through that to start off with. We'll then go on to talking about knowledge and those sort of things with that. Don't worry, Michael, then life skills and then social as well. Next slide, please. So yeah, firstly, we're going to be talking through career, especially to do with employability rates, but also elements of transferable skills that you get from it, and also the differences between vocational degrees that lead to one certain career pathway and those that are a bit more flexible when it comes to career options as well. Next slide, please. So as I said, employability rates are something that is really worth considering. You want to be able to, when you put your CV out there, to be able to put applications out there, to be getting a lot of interviews, to be getting a lot of offers. And one thing that can really add a string to your bow is having a degree on a CV or on any application. It is often for a lot of jobs now, especially the higher paid jobs, put in the essential or the desirable section. So it is really something that can sort of rise you above the rest of the competition. So something that we always talk about is that graduates are more likely to have higher employment rates than non-graduates. That's been happening year on year. The more popular degrees become, the more you are starting to see this. Not only that some jobs have degrees now as a requirement, and that is getting more and more the case, but also that employment rates are happening more for those with degrees, because the more competitive the employment market becomes, the higher the qualification you have, it makes you more competitive as well. So it is something to take into consideration when jobs are being more restricted, that the more competitive you can make yourself, the better. Next slide, please. So alongside going for those higher tier, higher up the ladder jobs comes money. And I'm not going to say that money is the be all and end all. It is certainly not. Enjoying your job is obviously very important. Feeling challenged in your job is really important. But there are monetary benefits of having a degree. So the average salary for someone doing a graduate scheme, for example, which is a scheme that's only open to people to go into managerial level jobs who have degrees. So in your 3rd year of university, typically graduate scheme employers, so there's all sorts. You've got the government, you've got insurance, you've got Morrison's, you've got Audi. All of these companies have graduate schemes, which essentially gives you a 2-year fast track into the top level positions like regional management. So you could at 25 be a regional manager for Norfolk, for Audi, and be earning a lot of money straight out of university. So the average salary for a graduate scheme is £26,949, which is no small amount of money, especially at such a young age as well. So a lot of people are very concerned about the monetary costs of going to university, which Amelia will talk about shortly. But one point to consider is it is an investment in yourself, and it usually pays dividends through career at the end. If we're not looking at graduate schemes, so they are very competitive, they are for the best of the best, as it were. But on the whole, graduates earn 20% more in their lifetime earnings than those without a degree. So if you're put off by these 50 grand figures and these huge figures that you see in the media, what the media often don't do is then go into repayments and go into how much you earn over your lifetime. So if you're thinking about your lifetime happiness and that we're going to be working for quite a long time as well, it is an investment in yourself, and you're likely to pay that back triple, quadruple the amount based on your graduate earnings in the future as well, when it comes to the actual salary that you get at the end. Next slide, please. So what we've got on the screen now is just some of the jobs that are now in existence that do generally have degrees as a requirement, or certainly are usually in that essential or desirable column when we're looking at job specifications. So a police officer, I think from 2022, I believe it is, if you want to be specifically a police officer, you will need a degree. So you can do the degree apprenticeship route, or you can go straight through the policing degree route or the graduate route. To be a physiotherapist, you need a degree. To be a social worker, you need a degree. To be a medical doctor, teacher, engineering is only in certain sectors, but in more sectors now, engineering is becoming a degree subject. Being a pharmacist, a clinical psychologist, teaching, usually for initial teacher training or doing a PGCE, and law through to be a solicitor or to be a barrister. That's not to say that you can't work in these sectors without if you don't have a degree, because you can work for the NHS, for example, as a healthcare assistant without having a degree. You can work as a legal administrator without having a degree. But to get the higher level jobs, you do have a degree as a requirement, because these sectors value the level of knowledge you get over these 3 years, the placement experience and on-the-job training you get over these 3 years as well, which is why more and more public service and private sector jobs are becoming degree based as well. Next slide, please. So the reason why employers and employability rates are higher for graduates, the reason why you're paid more as a graduate, is not only if you're doing vocational degrees because of the knowledge of the placements and those sort of things that you get from it, but it's also the transferable skills that you get. So there are 75% of employers are looking for a degree, not in a specific sector, just a degree. So I, for example, am a history graduate. I never had any want to go on to be a historian. I didn't want to go to history teaching, which a lot of people do. I went to university for the simple reason that I really liked history. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I knew that it would help me to get into several different jobs because of these skills. So from humanities, from social sciences, any of these areas, you might not have a specific career in mind, but you'll still get real good employability skills like independence, problem solving, organisation and planning, timekeeping, communication, critical thinking, research, teamwork, presentation skills. And what you've got the benefit of doing when you're at university is you've got career services to help you identify these skills, have a CV tailor-made over these 3 years, so you don't have to worry about it in sixth form and college whilst you're worrying about doing your exams and everything else. You've got 3 years to sort of sort this all out, and you've got real-time examples to actually then talk about in interview as well with your degree. So lots and lots of skills, lots and lots of knowledge that you can get from that as well, that ultimately leads to really good dividends when it comes to career prospects as well. Next slide, please. So yeah, the kind of opportunities that you get at a university to make you employable is you also have things like years in industry, which are really worth thinking about. More and more courses now have these in addition to, it's a part of like the Level Up program that the government talk about, sort of skills-based learning. Universities are very much buying into this as well, to ensure that you have employment experience alongside being in those lectures and classrooms. So you can do that through a year in industry for practical and vocational courses. You can do year abroad because we live in a very global world, We live in a very global society. So getting year abroad experience for working in international business and those sort of things is really beneficial. There are internships, there's placement, there's volunteering. A lot of these are paid as well, so that is a way to get a bit of additional money to help pay for rent and enjoy yourself at university as well. Next slide, please. So career isn't everything. You do want to enjoy yourself at university as well. And as I sort of said earlier, I didn't have a particular career in mind. I sort of wanted a couple of years to not have to worry about being an adult in that sort of scary way of I didn't want to jump straight into a career. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I simply just wanted to learn more about a subject. And one of the main reasons that people go to university is because they really enjoy what they're currently studying and they sort of love to learn and they want to learn more about it. And there is no better reason to go on to university level study than that. Because if you study what you truly enjoy, you'll do really well in it. And then from doing really well in that, it will open up things in the future for you as well. So a lot of people go to university for knowledge. Next slide, please. So whatever you choose to do, I really do recommend you do something you love. So there is sort of worth taking into consideration that certain job sectors are, so STEM, for example, there is a lot more demand for people with STEM degrees at the moment, but no matter what, if you really don't like STEM and you don't want to go into STEM, do just study something you love and the rest will follow. And I think that's one piece of advice that I would give to my younger self is completely don't feel pressured to go into one thing or another, because you will find opportunities based off doing something you really enjoy and doing really well in it. Next slide, please. So there is a lot of choice when it comes to university as well, so that you can study exactly what you want to do and exactly what you love, or maybe even explore something new that you've never really thought about before, but it would sound like an amazing opportunity to go into. So out of those 3,500 different courses, you've got all sorts like marine biology that you might not have thought about before. You've got very vocational things like sports coaching. You could go into something very specific like sports journalism and combine two things that you really enjoy. For example, you've got all the arts courses, you've got loads and loads of different courses to choose from. So there will be a course for you that you enjoy. And they're also very much designed in lots of different ways. So for example, if you search for history at the University of Sheffield and the history at the University of East Anglia are completely different courses. Because the curriculum is completely different. So if there's elements of your course at the moment that you don't like as much, the world is sort of your oyster to basically tailor make a degree for you because of the level of choice that you've got out there as well. Next slide, please. So you also do learn in different ways. So it's not all just sitting in a lecture and having someone talk at you. There are elements of that and they can be really beneficial. In a lot of ways through meeting 200 people in your lecture. There can be a really novel experience like that. Seminars are smaller discussion based. So again, one of my favorite things about university was we were given a topic and I got to argue about it, and I got to argue about what someone had written that's an expert in the subject, and they told me to be critical about it. And I absolutely loved being able to do that because I never really got the opportunity to do that before, which again, that's the kind of thinking that we want people to have in the workplace. So all really beneficial with that. But if you're a practical learner and you're doing BTECs or you're doing vocational and technical qualifications, there are practical degrees out there for you as well, very placement based, very independent and reflective study based. And problem-based learning based as well, which is giving you a real world problem. So for example, university lecturers right now are helping out with the coronavirus situation. They will give you these sort of problems and discuss how to help them with real world learning as well. So lots of really useful skills there. If we go to the next slide, please. So the next bit we're talking about is life skills. So you don't only get the knowledge and those sort of career-based skills, but university is also a really good opportunity to have a comfortable way to learn to be independent and become an adult. So it gives you a lot of confidence. The main thing that when we talk to students that they say that they've gained from university is confidence in themselves and confidence to be able to go and to go into the rental market, to go into the employment market, with knowing themselves and knowing their skills and feeling confident that they're making the right choices with that as well, because they've had those additional years in a supported environment to feel comfortable with being an adult and learning the things that can be really difficult when being an adult as well. Next slide, please. So the kind of life skills that a lot of students learn, this will be whether you move away from home, and you don't have to move away from home to go to university. So if that's the thing that's putting you off, we have loads of commuter students who live at home to save a bit of money, or because they can't move out of home, maybe they have adults or children that are dependent on them, for example. You get these life skills no matter what. So things like cooking, things like learning to budget. So it might be the first time you have a bank account. It might be the first time you have money incoming. For certain, I did work when I was in sixth form, but never the amount of money that I had to budget in one big chunk that I got from my student loan. And if I'd gone straight into the world of work, I can imagine my pay slip would have gone pretty quickly, and I wouldn't have learned to budget quite as well. So it sort of gives you a bit of a training ring to be able to learn these adult skills with a bit less risk involved with it as well. Learning to pay bills for the first time. So in my first year, I didn't have to learn to pay bills, but in my second and third year, I had money to be able to do that I know that was guaranteed to be coming in. And I was the one that sorted out the bills, and that made me feel very adult. But I also had people to help me with that as well. So that then when I rented with friends after I left university, I knew exactly what to do in that way as well. You might be doing laundry for the first time. I know several students that have never turned on a washing machine before, much to parents' chagrin, but there is that sort of involved with it. But as I said, what comes with all of that is self-confidence and independence, so that when you're in the next stage of your life to do interviews and get into work, which can be really stressful, you've got the independent living part absolutely down, and that can really be helpful with that. Next slide, please. So this is the sort of main point around this, is it is scary to become independent. It is scary to sort of maybe move away from home for the first time, but universities, as opposed to other pathways, are extremely supported. So I've never seen the amount of support that I got at university. And if you're the kind of person that loves opportunities and accesses support, university is absolutely really, really supportive in all of these different ways. So you have financial advice. They're not just going to give you money, and then if you're struggling with it, they will help you to budget it. They will help you. There are hardship funds if your money doesn't come in on time. Unfortunately, you don't get that in the outside world. Lots and lots of different things. Peer support and mentoring. Third years will help first years with their essays if they're struggling. There's well-being and mental health advice. You don't have to wait for 16 weeks to get counselling. Because they're not, the mental health support isn't as strained as the NHS. So we've got a 0-week waiting list for counselling, for example, and it's free. There's disability support and advice. So if you have a mental health condition, a learning difficulty, a physical impairment, there is a fund that the university you can apply for, that the university will get to help you, support you with this. There's academic help. So if you're afraid of how to do independent study and use the library, there are sessions for that. Counselling, there are residents. So if you don't like who you live with, you've got an option to move out. I wish that happened in rental accommodation. It's always a bit more complicated than that. But there is basically, if things don't quite go right, there's someone to help you with that every stage of the way, so that when you then go off on your own with these things, you feel very, very comfortable to be able to do so because you've dealt with them in this supported environment. Next slide, please. So the final thing I'm going to talk about, and the fun bit that we get to finish off with, is social. So the predominant reason you should be going to study is wanting to go and study something, but obviously social life, and for a lot of people, social life is the best thing about university. It is the biggest benefit that they get from it. You get to meet different people from loads of different walks of life. It's a very employment-based environment in that way. You'll be studying with people from all different age groups, mature students as well. You'll be studying with people from all different countries all over the world and getting to learn about different cultures and different people. It might be the first time that you've met someone from Scotland or Northern Ireland or the north of England even, or someone outside of Norfolk. So it's just a really open and welcoming environment, and you get to meet people from all different walks of life, which can be a really interesting and amazing experience as well. Next slide, please. So this is just an example of what somebody who's studying chemistry's timetable might look like. So as you can see here, these are what are called contact hours. So they've got like 2 hours of lectures or perhaps seminars or practicals and tutorials. And you can see for majority of their days, their entire afternoon is free. And this tends to be a bit more for chemistry students than your humanities student, for example, which can be 10 contact hours to 12 contact hours. It's not because you're expected to have complete free time in the rest of that time. You are expected to do like a 9 to 5 day, because the rest is reading time and independent study time. But you could choose to do that independent study in the evening if you wanted to, and then you can have the afternoon to get involved in clubs and societies. You've got a lot more freedom with your time to be able to be flexible with having social and get involved with things. You can do shifts during the day if you had a part-time job, for example, and work around that. But do make sure that you also factor in some time for study, as a lot of first years forget that just because it's not on your timetable, it doesn't mean that you can completely ignore your independent study with that. But there is a lot of flexibility around social, fitting that around your contact hours as well. Next slide, please. So the thing with student experience, and the thing that people remember university and call it the best years of their lives, the reason being is you get to meet these new people. You get to try amazing new things, opportunities that I wish someone just called me up and was like, hey, Becky, do you want to go scuba diving next weekend? I don't get those opportunities. I wish I did. And you get to do it for like a £5. So I remember in my freshers week, I did that thing. I went scuba diving. It wasn't a pool. It wasn't like the Bahamas or anything, but it was very cheap. And it was sort of the first time that I got to experience that kind of thing. There's all sorts of different club societies. There's garlic bread society, where you literally eat different garlic breads from different supermarkets and rank them. There's Quidditch, there's film. No matter what you're interested in, there is a club and society for you on that. And it's an amazing way to meet lots of different people from lots of different social groups and sort of expand your social network as well. And all of this contributes to people having some of the best years of their lives as well. Next slide, please. So yeah, what builds up all of this student experience is things like clubs and societies, going to art galleries, for example, going to cities that have museums, places like gigs, getting involved in student politics, for example. So there are a lot of students that are now politicians because they contributed to their student union and got involved politically in that. And it sort of helped frame people's mindsets with knowing people from all different places as well. So really, really useful in terms of sort of social with that. Next slide, please. So just to conclude, before I hand over to Amelia to tell you about how do you pay for all of this, and if this sounds amazing to you, how do you actually afford it? University helps with career options. I do recommend you go and study something you love. So university is a great opportunity to carry on knowledge for a vocation, or simply because you really enjoy that subject and you want to learn more about it. And it does have that additional benefit of making you more employable and giving you more time to decide exactly what you want to do. You do develop really valuable life skills alongside the ability to access loads of support services and opportunities that might help you decide what you want to do. So I now do what I do because of an opportunity I took at university to do public speaking, for example, and I found out I loved it. And the final thing is it enables you to meet new people and try new things. If you're an opportunity getter, and you love all of those things, I do really recommend university for you, as you will have the fun of your life.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. I can't believe the gaps in that chemistry student's timetable. When I was studying chemistry, I had 0 gaps. I had labs until 5 o'clock every day. So I should have studied.
Maybe it's changed.
I think that was maybe more, there was some modelling there, so maybe it was more of a computer stroke chemistry type degree, but I know practical chemistry is very much packed because of all the labs. But thank you very much for that. Yeah, that was really informative. Just a couple of questions. I don't know if you wanted to expand on them now or at the end, but there was a question about combining different degrees and opportunities for that. I know you've spoken in previous talks about those options. So yeah, I don't know if you want to add something about that now, or
absolutely. So there are things called dual honours that you can do at university, or you could be applying for something that is combined already. So for example, you can apply for degrees. So we've got one at UEA, for example, that's archaeology, anthropology and art history, and that's just the degree title. That is what it's called. So all of those subjects are pre-combined for you. Or what you can do is choose to do something called a dual honours, which essentially combines 2 schools of study together. So half of your study is in one school of study and half is in the other. So they do have to match. You can't, for example, study English and chemistry. They do need to be sort of within the same faculty, is what we call them, with all the subjects that are similar go together. So, for example, if you can't decide between chemistry and biology, you could do a dual honours in chemistry or biology, or do biochemistry. And then what you can do in your 2nd and 3rd year is you can choose to study more modules, so units, in one subject than the other, and you can choose to do your research project, your dissertation in your 3rd year on one subject if you start to enjoy it more. So typical combinations of things like English and history, archaeology and history, for example, which is what I did. And so you can do sort of half of your study in one school and then choose half of your modules from another. That's sort of how they work.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Rebecca. Thanks for that. And again, lots of questions, and we've answered a few of them in the chat, but please keep them coming, and we'll do our best to either get to them via the text and chat function, or we can come back to them at the end. But thank you very much, Rebecca, for that. So I'm going to pass over to Amelia now from the University of Suffolk, who's going to be going through student finance with us now. So thanks, Amelia, for joining us this afternoon.
No problem at all. Hi everybody, lovely to see you. Finally going to get a chance to experience what it's like to be Professor Chris Whitty. Next slide please. My name's Amelia, as I say. I'm a student recruitment officer. I work at the University of Suffolk down in Ipswich. The degree that I have is a BA Honours in English Lit from the University of Reading, and there's a very flattering picture of me on my graduation day. So after all the exciting stuff that Rebecca's just shared with you, I have to warn you that this is not, student finance is not the most thrilling topic in the world, but it is really important and it's quite complicated. So if you have got any questions, please do just shout and I will pick up on any that are outstanding at the end. Next slide, please. You'll see a QR code on your screen. That is one that we use basically to track the people that we have spoken to, and also if you want to, it will take you to a form where you can request one of our prospectuses. So if you have got a mobile phone on you, please do give that a scan. It's really helpful for me, and also we can then send you one of our lovely prospectuses. So just use your phone camera. It won't spend ages on that. Next slide, please. So student finance. Next slide, please. Sorry, this is quite a slide heavy presentation. The key headline, I guess, is that you do not need cash to go to university. Because there is funding available via the student finance company, student loan company, I beg your pardon, you do not need to have the cash up front. So it's not a case of saving everything up and having all of that money in your bank account ready to go. And that's the first thing that I want to just speak a bit further about in this session. Next, please. So there are two, I guess, pots that make up what people refer to as student finance. And the first pot is the tuition fee loan. So one of the key things about this is that the tuition fee loan is not means tested, therefore it is available to all eligible students. I'm not going to go maths into eligibility, but essentially if you have been ordinarily resident in the UK for 3 or more years before the start of your course, you will be eligible to access this funding. Most universities, as you might know, charge tuition fees of £9,250 a year. But if you are eligible for the loan, you will be able to borrow that full amount. So even if you're in a very fortunate position of, being a millionaire, you will still be able to borrow that money if you want to. That money is paid directly to the university. So that money doesn't come through to you and then you have to sort of try not to go and, spend the whole lot shopping on the high street. I wish at the moment. That money goes directly to the university. You never see it. So there's no way that you can not pay that money. You can't essentially steal it from the university. It's supplied by Student Finance England for all of you because we are in England, and I have included the link there. But basically, if you Google student finance, it's all on the .gov websites provided through the government. Next slide. Yeah, nothing. Okay, so the second part of the second pot is the maintenance loan. This is the money that you will be lent to contribute towards your living and studying expenses. Now, for quite a high proportion of students, this money won't completely cover your living expenses. So by living expenses, we're thinking about anything that aren't your course fees. So accommodation will be the biggest one if you're living away from home, probably. Also talking about food, books, equipment that you might need for your course, clothing, transport, and so on. This money is paid directly to you. So this is the money that you need to make sure you don't go out and spend. So at the beginning of each semester, universities have 3 terms. At the beginning of each term, you will get a portion of that amount. So ordinarily you get slightly more in the summer term. And the other big difference with this is that it is means tested. So the money that you receive is based on your household income, and we will speak shortly about what exactly is meant by household income. The basic principle is that the lower your household income, the greater the amount of loan you will be entitled to have. Okay, so just to recap then, things that we're talking about: living expenses, the things that can affect your budget and how much money you have. Accommodation, living at home does tend to be the cheapest option, but university accommodation can vary vastly from sort of below, I don't know, £75 a week if you're very lucky, all the way up to sort of £250 a week plus if you wanted, your own studio flat or something very fancy. Food, so bearing in mind things like I was in catered accommodation in my first year, which probably was more expensive than it would have been if I'd catered for myself. But I wasn't great at cooking. It was very social. We did have basic kitchens, so we could prepare our own food. But if you're good at cooking, or you like the idea of having a bit more flexibility around your meals, then self-catering is a great option. Travel, so getting to and from university. If you're living at a university where perhaps you don't live very near your accommodation, you might be in different parts of a town or city. Are you going to need to use public transport? Are you going to want or need to run a car? Books and equipment. Facilities that the university can provide you with will have a bearing on that. So if there's a big library, you'll need to buy less books, things like that. Some courses will require you to have more equipment than others. I did English. I think I had to buy some books, and I don't remember having to buy anything else apart from pens, really, and notepads. Social life, that's, that can be as much or as little as you want. If you want to go out, clubbing 5 nights a week, that's going to be a lot more expensive than maybe having a Netflix subscription and spending most of your evenings in with your housemates, maybe. And then whatever else you consider to be essential, your mobile phone contract, your Spotify subscription, your trainers, your whatever it might be. Okay, thank you. I don't know if that's really tiny on your screen. It's pretty tiny on mine, but that just shows you on a scale how much you would be entitled to borrow. So you are entitled to borrow less if you choose to stay living at home. If you choose to study away from home, don't worry about the figures in brackets. If you decide to study away from home but not in London, you're entitled to a bit more. If you decide that you want to study away from home and you're going to go to university in London, you can borrow more money because the cost of studying in London is higher than it is in other parts of the country because of living expenses. Fees will be the same, but you'll probably find that things like accommodation and food will cost you more. I said that we would touch on household income. Household income is kind of what it says on the tin, really. It's the people that you live with. So you might live with both your parents, in which case it will look at both of their incomes. If you live with one parent but not the other, it would be the parent that you live with. If you have a step parent, it would be their income as well. So if you live with mum and stepdad, then it would be mum and stepdad. If you live with your dad and your stepmum, it would be their income. If you split your time between both, it would be whoever you spend the most time with. If it's exactly 50-50, my advice to you, put the one with the lower household income because you'll get a bigger loan. It wouldn't include income that you might have from a part-time job. It wouldn't include things like assets, so they're not going to look at how much is your family home worth or your car or your parents' savings or anything like that. And it wouldn't ordinarily take into account if you have, say, adult siblings that live with you. They're not financially responsible for you in the eyes of the government, so it wouldn't take that into account either. Thank you. Other sources of funding, I don't want to go into masses of detail because I don't want things to get kind of even more confusing, I guess, than they probably are already. But there are the top 1, 2, 3, 4 items on this list are all supplied by Student Finance, and you would apply separately but through the same system, so still through the Student Finance Gov website. Disabled Students Allowance would depend on your needs, so that is assessed. You would meet with an assessor and they would make a recommendation as to how much money that would be. So it might be that you need transport support. It might be that you will need to buy a dictaphone. It might be that you will need care whilst you're living away from home. So it could be really any amount of money, and it will depend on the disability that you have. It does need to be a registered disability, whether it's physical, mental health, or a learning disability. If you are a parent, you are entitled to money towards childcare. If you are a parent, I wouldn't have thought that would apply to many people, but if it does, if you are a parent, there is also some money that is attached to that. If you have a dependent who isn't a child, so if you are a carer for mum, dad, another adult relative, there's some money that you can apply for that. All of those are allowances and grants. That means you don't have to pay them back. So that money is a gift to you, essentially. You don't have to, that will not become part of your student debt. NHS Learning Support Fund is a presentation in its own right, but if you are applying for medicine or a subject allied to medicine, so things like nursing, physiotherapy, operating department practice, midwifery, paramedic science, there's additional money that you can access. So there's a £5,000 bursary, so again, free money, and there are other streams available as well, so things like if you need money to help you go to your professional placement because you have to drive or you have to get the bus, and there's other money available through the NHS as well. That is separate to student finance, so you have to go through a separate application process via the, oh gosh, it's got a long name, NHS Business Services. authority. And then lastly, there are university-specific bursaries and scholarships. So almost all universities will offer some kind of other funding, and those are sources that are unique to that university, and they can be based on a huge variety of factors. So often, including at Suffolk, it will be based, it will be income based, so additional support for students from less well-off households. It might be if you are if you've been a looked after child at any time. It could be because of your postcode. It could be based on doing, so at Reading I got, it was a lot, I think it's about £2,000 because I exceeded the conditions of my offer. So it could be based on performance in exams. It could be based on, one of my friends was on a golf scholarship. So you got golf lessons and golf equipment paid for. It could be music, it could be singing, it could be, you know, and my advice with all of those things is look at individual universities. If you think you might be entitled, apply. The worst they can do is say no. The frustrating thing is that you do need to kind of research by university. So it's a case of kind of looking at the individual offers that are out there. Thank you. Just a few budgeting tips then, before we move on to have a look at how repayment works. Open a student bank account. Student bank accounts often have perks that sort of regular adult bank accounts don't have, like free overdrafts. So if you overspend, the bank will loan you a bit of money without charging you for it. Ordinarily, you pay to use an overdraft. If you possibly can, avoid credit cards. There are student credit cards out there, but I would really advise that you don't use those to get into debt. Estimate expenses and try to stick to a budget. So student finance is not open for people who are in year 12 yet, but there is a calculator on the student finance website that you can go to, and you can look, and it will give you an idea of what you might be entitled to. So that will give you a good idea around budget, and have a conversation as a family early. So how much mums, dads, parents, carers, whoever, are you thinking that you will be subsidising your children? You might have a very different idea from what they're expecting you to be able to give them. Get a totem card, used to be called an NUS, National Union of Student Cards. That will give you discounts on everything from food shopping to holidays. Most student towns are very well set up for students, so they will have, like in shopping centres, they often do evenings where you get extra student discount. Most restaurants, there will be cheaper nights for students to eat, nights in nightclubs that are just for students, gyms, travel agents and so on. Buying in bulk works well if you have space. It's a good idea to do things like buy really big bags of pasta and rice. That works out much cheaper than buying, microwave packets and stuff every now and then. Learn to cook. Even if you're in catered accommodation in your first year, probably you will move into private rented in second and third year. This came as a very rude awakening to me, because, as I said, I wasn't a great cook. And I really struggled. I forced myself eventually to learn how to make, things that weren't just chicken nuggets and chips, but learning to cook is a really good idea. Cooking in groups, so we did that quite a lot. We would say, okay, each housemate does a night a week. And then have a think as well about whether you might want to look at getting a part-time job whilst you are at university. Most courses, you'll probably find that you do have time at least for a little bit of part-time work. So I worked at Reading Football Club. I waitressed and did the bar there, which was really flexible. Just signed up for the days that I wanted to do, really. And I was also a student ambassador, which actually, sort of touching on what Becky said, that's how I ended up doing this job. I decided to basically make a career out of being a student ambassador. So there are other bonuses as well to having a part-time job. Okay. So, repayments. The headline here is that repayments are based on what you earn and not what you owe. So there will be people here who are thinking of doing a 3-year degree and just the kind of standard 3-year undergrad. There are people who might be thinking about doing 4-year degree, whether it's got a sandwich year, a placement year, whether it's because it's got an attached integrated master's. There will be people who might be thinking about medicine, vet med, dentistry, in which case you're looking at 5 years, maybe even 6, if you go down the Oxbridge route. So you guys will have different amounts of debt when you graduate. However, even if one of you graduated with the standard amount of debt and another one of you graduated with £1 million worth of debt, you won't. If you were earning the same amount of money, you would pay it back at the same rate. And we'll have a look at that now in further detail. Okay. Repayment does not start until the April after you graduate and once you are earning £26,575 a year. So if you graduate and you are not earning that amount of money, you will not start paying your student finance back until you are earning that amount of money. If at any point during your career you drop below that threshold, if you go part-time, if you decide to just take a less well-paid job, if hopefully not, but if you're made redundant or something, your repayments freeze. So it's not like a normal debt. So if you've borrowed money for a mortgage or to buy a car or for whatever reason, normally, even if you lose your job or your financial circumstances seriously change, the bank is like, well, sorry, but you still need to make those repayments. That is not the case with student debt. It's calculated at 9% of any earnings over the threshold. We will look on the next slide at what that actually looks like, because that doesn't mean very much to most people. They apply very minimal interest, so it's not like a credit card or you know, a personal loan that you might take out where if you don't, you know, the longer you leave it, the more interest you accrue and it starts to become unmanageable. On a student loan, it is 3% plus whatever the retail price index is, which I think is normally about 2-point-something%. It's not that painful because this money automatically comes out of your wages. So like your national insurance, like your tax, it's just automatically deducted. You never see it, you don't have to hand it over. And it's written off after 30 years. So under the current system, if after 30 years you still owe money, which a lot of people do, it gets written off. And you know, it's not like if you still owe money when you pass away that your family then have to pay it back. It just doesn't work like that.
Thanks. Sorry, I've just you might come to this in a second, but we've had a few questions linked to that actually, in terms of parents acting as guarantors for the loan. And it doesn't work like that. Actually, it's what you just mentioned there, isn't it? There's no link like that.
No. You're not. If you don't pay it back, nobody is liable for it, because you can't opt out of paying it back, if you see what I mean. If you're earning over the threshold as well, you automatically make those payments. You can't choose to freeze it. That is one thing that you can't do with it. If you go on to the next slide there, you'll see why generally it doesn't become problematic. So under the current system, and there could be slight changes, but there won't be anything drastic for you guys. If you were earning £30,000 a year, you'd be earning £3,425 over the repayment threshold. 9% of that is £308.25p. You would pay that in 12 monthly instalments, so £25.69p. So your monthly repayment is just under £26. So it is pretty minimal. That system has changed quite a lot. So under the loan system that I'm under, the repayment threshold, I think when I graduated, was £15,000 a year, and the repayment was a lot more. So it's actually, although the cost of degrees has gone up, the way in which you repay them has actually become more generous, and I can't remember what it is, but it's a really high statistic. I think it's the majority of people don't actually ever end up paying back the entirety of their student loan. Okay. So you'll be maybe relieved to hear that we're coming to the final section of this presentation, which is how do you actually go about getting your hands on this money? Normally, student finance opens in late February. So if you're in year 12 now, you would be able to apply from January 2022 to start your course in the autumn of 2022. I would really encourage you to crack on with that. So you don't have to have an offer or any places confirmed or anything like that in order to make your student loan application. You will tell the student loan company later which university and course you are ultimately going to be doing. It's all an online process, so you will create an account on the student finance website. Important to remember that your parent or carer also needs to create an account, and they will enter details of the household income for the previous tax year. So that is how student finance will know how much to give you. Details are checked against HMRC records. Occasionally they might ask for further clarification, so it's quite a good idea, sort of in good time, just to have your financial or your family, your household's financial documents to hand, and then the loan is awarded. So it's not always as straightforward as that, but in the vast majority of cases it will be. The only times, I suppose, when it isn't is when there are questions about people's residency and those sorts of things, but I would not have thought that that would apply to many people here. Okay. And because I could have gone into a bit more detail about the application process, but I'm not going to, because it's still a year away really. So I think that would be a waste of time for now. But does anybody have anything that hasn't been answered? I haven't checked the Q&A, so I don't know, Michael, if there's anything in there that you would like to pick out.
Well, there's just a question come through now actually about the repayments and whether the tuition fees and maintenance loans are combined in the total that the students have to repay back.
Yes, sorry, I should have said that. Yeah, so the tuition fee and the maintenance loan combined to make what people refer to as student debt, basically.
Yeah, and there was a question on the interest rates, but I think you answered that in terms of it's much lower than a normal high street loan would be from a bank, essentially, and it's yeah.
I think one of the things that actually people do quite often ask is about if you do want to borrow money in the future, and particularly for a mortgage, will it affect that? The answer basically is no, and because it's firstly because of the fact that you have to the fact that your payments will freeze if your income drops. Secondly, because the interest is so low that it won't cause you issues. They don't look at it as if you if you owed £40,000 or £50,000 worth of debt on a credit card, that would be a serious problem for getting a mortgage. It's not if it's a student loan. They will look at it in terms of your monthly outgoings. When the bank asks you, how much do you spend on this, this and this, they'll see that you're paying, 40 quid a month off your student loan. But other than that, it won't affect your ability to borrow money in the future.
Thanks, Amelia. I think that was very detailed and covered all of the key points. I mean, essentially, from what you're saying, the finances shouldn't be a barrier to anyone going to university. Anybody can access university based on that loan system. And if you end up paying all of it back, then that's a great thing because you're earning a lot of money. I mean, Martin Lewis does a lot of these talks, doesn't he? And he says, look, if you're paying that back, that's great news because you're really earning a lot of money every year to do that, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, he would know better than I would probably the amount you would need to earn across the course of your career to ever pay back your student loan in full, but it's a lot. So, good for you if you do ever manage that.
Okay, thanks, Amelia. I'm just going to go through some important points from the East Norfolk process and the support available, but obviously if people have got questions linked to finance, please feel free to pop something in the chat, or if it's something that you wanted to ask Rebecca, that Amelia and Rebecca will still be around at the end, so please feel free to post. So in terms of the support available from East Norfolk as a college, I mean, we're very proud of the destinations that our students embark on. So in terms of university, more than half our students will successfully apply to some really competitive university courses. Others will go straight into employment and go on to apprenticeship courses as well, which is brilliant. So really, we encourage students to be very aspirational, to aim high, and essentially progress tutors, progress managers, senior advisors are there to support students and to really support them through any process that they want to embark on. But in terms of the UCAS process, we have already started introducing some materials for students to be looking through. I think at the moment the most important thing is clearly them returning to college this week, which has gone really, really well, and then focusing on completing their courses, doing all the relevant assessments for the teachers to be able to calculate their grades accurately. So that's the main focus. However, within all of that, it is important that students start thinking about their career options beyond East Norfolk. And for our current first years, UCAS apply for the 2022 cycle will go live in May, which is perfect timing actually, because after May half term, when all of the assessments and the calculated grades would have been completed by then, progress tutors will work with students to actually set up and register on the UCAS website. It's a much more straightforward process this year. So in the past, there's lots of different logins that students had to actually set up for the different parts of the process. This year, it's going to be students are going to set up one login on UCAS Hub, which has got lots and lots of information on, and that's where they will actually create their application and reply to their offer. So that'll just be one single login. So they have really simplified and streamlined that process for this year. It's really important that students continue to engage with their progress group sessions. At the moment, they're getting key bits of information, obviously, for return to college and what they need to be thinking about. So progress group sessions are always very important, but they will have a focus after May half term on the UCAS process. So it's really important that the students register correctly and they don't just set up an account independently. They have to link it into the college using the East Norfolk buzzword, which changes every year, and progress tutors will guide students through that process. But it's important that they do that to actually successfully complete everything the way they need to. I think it's important to mention at this point, actually, as part of the progress group session, students have been completing their personal development programme. So this is something that East Norfolk has developed with UEA, and we had our first cohort go through this last year. And students completing the personal development programme at the gold level actually get a 1 grade reduction from UEA. So we've had lots of students apply to UEA, as we do every year, and they've all actually received a lower offer based on them completing this personal development programme. They're also eligible for the Bright Spark Scholarship. So if they achieve 3 Bs and also complete the PDP at that gold award level, they're then able to access that scholarship, which is money that the university gives direct to students, which isn't part of the repayment scheme. Okay, so it's well worth students completing this. But even if students aren't necessarily, wanting to go to UEA, it's still a great programme to be involved with. You can see the core areas there that students work on. It's all linked into any career goals or any university ambitions they may have. So managing change, learning to live independently, planning their future, taking care of themselves, especially in this current climate, what's going on at the moment. So we've had lots and lots of sessions based on this throughout the year. So please encourage everybody to complete this to the best level they can. In terms of what students should be doing at the moment, as well as obviously, engaging with their teachers now that they're back on college sites and getting the best possible grades, just want to mention quickly the Sutton Trust summer schools. So there's 2 different versions actually this year. There's an apprenticeship programme and a UK summer schools programme. These are both virtual. And the application for these actually runs out on the 16th of March. So we have advertised this to students, but please encourage your sons and daughters to actually go on to these links. We will share them again with them via email. They're great opportunities. So these are run by Russell Group Universities in Cambridge. and they provide that taster session for what university experience is going to be like, as well as helping students make decisions about the courses they want to study. UCAS are also running their careers fair virtually this year, and we'll be sharing this link out for students to book on. So they're calling them Discovery Days, but again, there's lots and lots of universities that are linked into these UCAS events. So it's an opportunity for students to go on, and for parents as well, actually, to maybe quiz some of the students, some of the lecturers about different courses, about some different career options, and maybe if students are interested in certain careers, what certain degrees they should be looking at completing. So usually these are run, obviously, at a site somewhere. So, for example, UEA, and we would take coachloads of students to them, but they're all moving online. But I suppose the benefits of that is that you can access all of that information from home. So parents and carers are also going to be able to access that. So again, we'll send this information out by parent news and by student emails as well. Oxford run their own version, so Cambridge are actually involved in the Sutton Trust along with some other Russell Group universities. Oxford also run their summer school by the Unique programme, and the deadline for this is the 15th of March this week. And again, this has gone out to all students, but just a reminder, really. And even if they're not necessarily interested in applying to Oxford, it's still a great opportunity. Again, this event is virtual. It's about meeting lecturers, meeting other students, quizzing other people about how they're thinking about doing their research and making decisions. So I would definitely urge students to look into this. There are certain entry requirements that students have to meet for the Sutton Trust and Unique, but it's well worth doing the research and seeing if they can get on. And of course, I feel as if I have to mention UEA and University of Suffolk, but they're both brilliant universities, and lots of our students do apply to them, and they both run some excellent summer programs as well. So I will include the links to the UEA summer schools and the University of Suffolk summer schools as well in all that communication that we get out. And Amelia and Rebecca, maybe at the end, you may want to go through some more details in terms of what's coming up from your universities. That might be really helpful actually for everyone to hear. The other thing I wanted to mention actually is Unifrog. So we've launched Unifrog from before Christmas, and students have really provided some really positive feedback from it. So this is a careers platform. It's all online. It's not just focused on universities, so students can go on and actually research different careers. They can complete different quizzes, personality type quizzes and questions, and then their likes and interests, and it will actually come up with some suggestions for careers. It's got an extensive careers library where different professionals are actually talking through their careers and how they got to where they are now. So that's really interesting. And it's got a whole range of different options in terms of universities, as well as apprenticeships and different careers as well on there. So there was a question earlier on about applying abroad. And Unifrog actually in that package you can actually search for different university programs, and actually some students have come over to me and actually said, well, actually there's some European universities that I didn't know about offering my degree that I've actually researched on Unifrog. So I would definitely encourage students to go on and start using this from now. There's going to be some more structured progress group sessions on Unifrog, and the other thing is that parents and carers can also have their own personal login. So again, this has been shared in the past, but we'll send it out again in the communication from this session. Everybody's got an account. All you need to do is go onto that website, so unifrog.org/students, and you can actually use that form code there. So you can take a picture of it on the screen or make a note of it. And that will enable you to create an account as a parent carer. So you won't be able to go on and see your child's details and their searches, but you will be able to navigate the site as if you were a student. So all of the searches that students can do, all of those careers library talks, all of those how-to guides, they're all available to parents and carers. So I would definitely encourage everybody to actually set up a Unifrog account and to look through. And any problems with accessing any of the information, if you email futures@East Norfolk, they will better support you in setting up an account. But it's really, really extensive, and it enables you to search your courses. And actually save your searches, so you can always go back to them. You can tailor lots of different types of searches. and you can set up different favourites. And one of the strengths of it as well, it pulls on all the UCAS data, so you can go onto the UCAS website as well, but it will pull all that UCAS information to one place, and it will actually set the different university options in terms of aspirational choices as well. So students will enter their subjects, their predicted grades, where they think they are currently at the moment, and Unifrog will actually say, right, and based on what you've said and what you want to study, these are the degree programs that are actually suited to you, and they will also list them, you know, as aspirational course choices as well, so students can really push themselves and aim for the best course at the best university, because it also has all of the university league table information in there, and you can rank and sort all of that information multiple ways. So it's really a good platform to go on and explore from now. In terms of the overall timeline, I think at the moment what students are doing, what they should continue to do is, as well as, you know, obviously completing their courses, is using Unifrog, the UCAS website, to fully research their options. They could also use various league tables and the tariff calculator to support them with that research. But again, that is all actually built into the Unifrog platform. So I would definitely, you can't do too much research. There was a question earlier on in the chat about, is it possible to change courses once you go to university? Yes, of course it is. But ideally, students will go on the course that's most suited to them from the start. That of course isn't always possible, and sometimes you need to go and experience it for yourself to realise what it's all about. But in terms of making those decisions, you should be basing that on thorough research. Once you're there, of course, you can make changes to your degree programme and go from maybe a related degree programme, something completely different, or go from university to university. But the more research you do, the better the chance of you finding that degree that's best suited to you. After May half term, that's when we register for UCAS and complete the online form. That includes obviously drafting personal statements. Progress tutors will support students with this step by step. So all of the progress group sessions will be focused on Unifrog, researching university options, and actually completing that form, as well as doing a first draft of the personal statement. And Unifrog and the UCAS websites have got lots and lots of resources for supporting students with that. And what we encourage all students to do is to actually research university as an option. We realise that it may not be the best option for all of our students, but what we say is don't rule it out for reasons such as finance, for example, or because you just don't think you're able to go to university. As Rebecca mentioned, there's so many different course choices out there that there's bound to be something that's suited to all of our students. What we say is thoroughly research university as a potential option. You can also use Unifrog to look at apprenticeships or different direct career routes as well, but make sure you do thorough research involving all of the different potential routes, especially in the climate that we're in at the moment. You really want to sort of widen your choices as much as possible, and then narrow that down and make final decisions, towards the end of your second year at college. Now, some of the more competitive courses, there are admissions tests. So, for example, if students are applying for Oxford or Cambridge degrees, or they're applying for medicine, and we have lots of our students who are very successful in those routes as well, then there will be specific admissions tests, which, as part of the Extend Progress Group sessions, they will be practicing and discussing. And we also run bespoke programs such as Medics Extra as an enhanced option, which some students are involved in, and the whole focus, or one of the main focuses of that, is actually practicing for admissions tests. What we're hoping to do after half term, so after Easter, is actually run another session more focused on making competitive applications. So we're going to have a guest speaker from Oxford or Cambridge and another Russell Group University, maybe offering a bit more information directly for these competitive course choices. Another thing, obviously, before the end of this academic year and before the summer, is to attend as many virtual events as possible. So including Sutton Trust, Unique, different seminars and courses at UEA, University of Suffolk, and I suppose the beauty of it being virtual is you can attend lots and lots all around the country without having to worry too much about travel. So that is an advantage. So I would definitely recommend that students engage in as much of that material as possible. In terms of the deadlines after that, they are pretty tight. That's why that time after May half term to the summer is a crucial time really for students, especially if they're making a competitive application, because applications to Oxford, Cambridge for medicine, dentistry, vet science, they have an earlier UCAS deadline of 15th of October. So that means the deadline at East Norfolk for actually completing a UCAS application is going to be towards the end of September. So it's 24th of September for next academic year. That means that a bulk of the application has got to be completed really before the summer, and then students are just coming back and maybe making some final changes to their personal statements, maybe just finalising some of their course options on their form. So the more work that students do from May half term to the summer, the better, essentially. And it's really important that they follow the guidance of their progress tutor, because students just going on and just creating an account independently of college means that they won't be able to link it in for a reference. So some students will just go on, they will register independently, they'll pay and send, and they think that actually that's just gone to UCAS and that's everything they need to do, when actually that's not the process, and that won't actually be sent unless it's linked to the college. We actually supply a reference, the predicted grades, and then we send it from our area. Okay, so it's really important that they engage with those progress group sessions and follow all that through. And it works. Okay, so we've averaged 10 Oxbridge offers every year. So that's an amazing achievement for a college of our size, and it really is about, you know, providing that outstanding support. So Jez has agreed for me to share this. He's one of our second year students who's been offered a place to study political science at Cambridge University, and as you can see from his testimonial there, you know, he really valued the support that he received from high school and from East Norfolk in terms of pushing him and making sure that he understood that university at that level was an option for him and that he could get there. So you know, it really is about aiming as high as you can and engaging with all the support that's on offer. So Jez is an example of where students can get to, and there was another student in terms of she was always thinking that you know, it's such a competitive process, so many people apply, you know, how am I different, how am I going to get there? Well, actually she did. She really valued support from her teachers. She's mentioned one of them there who really supported her in preparing for the interview and the whole application process, and she was also offered a place to study at Cambridge. So some wonderful experiences there, and we're really proud of all of our students and their destinations. And like I said, it's about really engaging with all that support that we have on offer. Okay, so that is all that I wanted to say about the East Norfolk process there. I don't know, Rebecca, Emil, if you wanted to just maybe follow up on any information about upcoming events at either of your universities, just to maybe finish off the session and to maybe give people an opportunity to ask any more questions. I think we've covered everything at the moment.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to go first, if that's all right, Amelia, and I'll pass over to you. So yeah, in terms of opportunities that are sort of upcoming, I've posted in the sort of announcement section a resources centre that we put together that has lots of information about, we put upcoming opportunities and things like that on there as well, but it's got loads of resources for you to have a look through for every single stage of the university process, all the way from thinking about university and why go to how do I look at my reading list and prepare for lectures and seminars. So do feel free to have a look through that. When we're looking at open days and those sort of things, they tend to run from about June. It is not easy to say right now if they are going to be large scale. So even if the entire country does open up on the 21st of June, open days are huge, almost like mini festivals in their own right. So I think a lot of universities are planning to have at least some sort of on-campus experience. But as Michael said, if they are partially online, that is nothing but a benefit. So I applied for 5 universities all over the country, and my doting father took me to every single one of them, much to having to get motel rooms and expenses with that. So it is a massive benefit that you can look at loads. But I do also recommend try and at least set foot on a campus before you put it as one of your offers, or a city university as well, because that's when you get the real experience. And Amelia might be similar to me, that I knew I wanted to go to the University of Sheffield because I went to the open day and it just felt right. So it is a real and positive experience with that. Summer schools and open days, if you do just have a look on the University of East Anglia website, there are summer schools coming up. There are guest lectures that are really worth doing if you're concerned that you haven't been able to do clubs and societies for a couple of years. If you're a medicine student, you're worried you haven't been able to get work experience or anything like that. Don't worry, universities are aware of that, but just try and access any virtual opportunities you can get, because showcasing that during a really difficult time you have accessed those opportunities and putting that on a personal statement is enough, and will really help. And also in that guide, we've got a super and extracurricular guide which links you to all of those virtual opportunities up and down the country, which might be helpful as well. Amelia.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Yeah, I would really echo what Rebecca said about going to online events. If you can set foot on campus, that is great. Yeah, I chose Reading because I got because I had a lovely feel there, and also because I'm a sort of boring person that goes to the university that both the parents went to. My mum was actually quite keen for me to go to a different university because on the open day the buses that came on campus were bright pink and she wouldn't shut up about them. But anyway. So in terms of what we've got coming up at Suffolk, we've got a virtual open event on 24th of April, which is Saturday. We've got a series of tasters. I've just put the link in the Q&A. I Wonder Wednesdays, which are on Wednesdays, funnily enough. It's an hour-long virtual taster. We've got subjects coming up like photography, we've got paramedic science, we've got fine art, we've got diagnostic radiography, so all sorts of different subjects, and you just literally log in, and there'll be some interactive stuff in there as well. And then the other thing I've linked in the chat is our Making a Difference conference. So that is for those who are interested in all of our healthcare subjects, so nursing, midwifery, paramedic science, our education course, and also the social sciences, so all of the ologies, sociology, psychology, criminology. So yeah, you can just click through on those links to make bookings. That's on the 26th of May, and that also has things like, we'll do a student panel. We have a practicing nurse who comes in and does a session on sort of a day in the life if you work for the NHS and those sorts of things. So we would love to see you. Those are also things that will look nice on your personal statement if you are sort of wondering about how to go around getting some of those experiences. That online offer that we, UEA and other universities have is a really nice thing to demonstrate your engagement. But yeah, thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, Amelia. Yeah, and just on personal statements, we did have a couple of questions. I know Kaylee in the background has answered. Yeah, extensive support is available with drafting, and like anything, the more drafts that students do of their personal statement, the better it's going to be. But progress sheets are available. We have lots of exemplar personal statements that students can actually read through. We're linking in our second year students with our first years to try and get them to support in terms of the process of going through that drafting. And we would definitely recommend that students use Unifrog, where they can actually go on, they can draft personal statements, they can save it, teachers can look at that, make comments on, progress tutors can also make comments on, and it's just a live document that you can actually save various edits of. So it's a brilliant platform to do that on. So Kaylee, Rich, I don't know if you want to add anything, please feel free, but I just want to say a big thank you to Rebecca and Amelia for joining us this afternoon. It's been really, really helpful, and they put some really good links in the chat there as well. Like we said at the start, we've recorded this session, so this will be going out. So if you had any problems joining at the start, I know some of you did, you will better go back and watch it, so you haven't missed anything. But thank you all for joining. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and please let me know if you've got any questions. Cool, thank you, bye bye.